Good morning and welcome to the Planning Board regular meeting on December 11th, 2025. Please silence your cell phone.
Did that.
Mr. Hart, can you please call the roll?
Member Bobby,
Present.
Member Brown,
Present.
Member Powell,
Present.
Member David,
Present.
Member Axelrod,
Present.
Chairperson Mendelson,
Present.
Town Attorney Rubin, and Vice Chair Rosen is absent at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that's good. Okay, swearing in of the public. For those giving testimony, please stand and raise your right hand or hands to be sworn in by and provide testimony for the application you are affiliated with. Mr. Hart, please swear in those giving testimony.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Approval of the minutes of November 13th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Anybody? No? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes
Go
of
ahead.
November 13th?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Moving right along, there's no unfinished business, so we will get to new business. Boy, that only took 2 minutes. Okay. Development Order Application Number PZ 2537, Michael Kaczynski. Okay. Application by William Thomas Unlimited Permit Services, Inc., requesting a special exception to install a 20,000-pound capacity boat lift in slip number 1 for the property located at 3912 South Ocean Boulevard, number 1415. Does any board member have any ex parte communications to disclose? Hearing none, at this time, I now open the public hearing. Town Planner Allen, please present the application.
Okay, good morning. For the record, Ingrid Allen, Town Planner. As per usual, we'll start off with the aerials. These do start on page 13 of your packets. So here we have the subject property. This is Regency Highland Condo. You can see their marina dock area to the west. And here you have a zoomed in view of the marina dock area. I've gone ahead and put a little note here. This is where the proposed lift is going to be located, and that's slip number 1. As indicated, this is a special exception request to install a 20,000-pound capacity lift. The request is on behalf of the property owner that resides in the unit number 1415. According to the applicant, there's an existing elevator lift located in the slip 1, which will be removed. The applicant has received both FDP and Army Corps approval. Their permit numbers are on page 9 of your packets. Now, there was a small discrepancy between the plan submitted to FDP and Army Corps and the plan submitted to the town with regards to the width of the lift. The FDP and Army Corps plan show a 15-foot width, and the town plan showed a 14-foot width. The applicant did provide email correspondence from both agencies indicating that they're okay with the discrepancy. In other words, it won't affect the validity of their current authorizations. We'll go ahead with the plans. This is a survey of the property. Again, these are the 11 by 17 plans in your packet. Here you have the site plan, which shows, again, the slip number 1 for the 20,000-pound capacity lift. Here you have a plan view of the slip right here. And here you have the typical section for the boat lift. So you can see on this sheet, the top of the lift measures 7 feet 6 inches. The applicant has not dimensioned the superstructure of the boat. That's not a requirement of the code. I typically ask the applicant if they know the boat, they can go ahead and, superimpose it. But if they don't have the boat or don't superimpose it, that's fine. I do ask the applicant then put a little note, which they have done here, that the requests will be in compliance with the definition of boat lift, which is on page 9 of your packets. Also, we do have certain maximum height requirements now for lifts. The code requires that the lift not be higher than the base flood elevation plus 8 feet. The base flood elevation for this particular property is 7 feet, so they can go up to 15 feet. And then if you look on the sheet, the top there is, the top of the lift is at 11.6 feet, so they are well in compliance. There's also perpendicular docking. If you recall that aerial, all the boats there are docked perpendicular. That said, I've gone ahead and provided the perpendicular docking regulations that are in the code starting on page 9. The applicant has indicated that they're in compliance with the perpendicular docking regulations, and I will add that staff, we've not received any complaints or concerns about the perpendicular docking at this particular condominium. And in addition, the applicant has provided an HOA approval letter from the condominium for the lift. That's on page 58 of your packets. As the board knows, all boat lifts do require a special exception approval by the planning board, and the board may approve the conditions, or deny the request. If the board approves the request, the applicant will have to obtain a building permit, and commencement of construction shall be initiated within 2 years following the date of approval by the planning board. Staff reviewed the applicant's request to include the plan set, which was date stamp received by the building department on November 20th of 2025, and finds that it is consistent with the special exception provisions in section 30-36 of the town code where applicable, and consistent with the town comprehensive plan and the town code. I'm happy to address any questions. We also have the authorized agent here, William Thomas, and we also have the unit owner as well, Mr. Kaczynski.
Okay. I have one question. So they were approved at the other agencies for 15 feet. Our plan says 14 feet,
Right.
so I assume we're improving 14 feet?
Right, we
Okay.
go with what's on our plan.
But it didn't, but they have the email saying that didn't,
Right,
okay.
it is.
Okay.
Discrepancy's okay.
Anybody else have any questions for staff or for
Yes.
the applicant or?
Curiosity, how large a boat will this be able to handle?
I'll defer that to the authorized agent. I'm not sure.
Good morning, William Thomas, Unlimited Permit Services, 6311 Northeast, 19th Terrace, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Usually there's a 25%. So if it's whatever 20,000 pounds is minus 25%, that would be the maximum that the boat lift could pick up. The exact size, every boat's different. A fishing boat, big and tall, go fast boats, long and skinny, but it's well less than 20,000 pounds, but I couldn't tell the exact footage.
Thank you.
That would be 16,000 pounds for those mathematical people.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good. I knew there was a reason we needed you to come back. Okay. Are you okay with that answer? Okay, great. Anybody else have any questions? There's no one from the.
I have a question. Are these docks the ones that are next to the townhouses? These are the townhouses that are right off the intercoastal?
Let me look at the
Oh.
aerial.
No,
Mr.
it's
Condon.
just south of Toscana, like a little south of Toscana. We see
Um,
our window.
I believe to the south, if you look at the aerial on page 13 of your packet, I could share the PowerPoint again. Right to the south, I believe that's Boca Cove.
Right,
Right.
right. It's
So-
Toscana, Boca Cove. and
So
that,
again,
yeah.
page 13 of your
Right.
packet. I could pull it up if you like. Can't share my screen at the moment.
Okay,
You-
no
You're
problem.
good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, I don't see any people from the public, so I guess they have no comments. And any other questions at all? Okay. The public hearing is now closed, and is there a motion to approve with conditions, or a motion to deny? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
Mr. Hart, can you call the roll?
Chairperson Mendelson,
Yes.
Member David,
yes.
Member Bobby,
Yes.
Member Brown, Member Powell,
Yes.
Member Axelrod.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Carried. Thank you. Enjoy it. Okay, next item. Proposed ordinance providing reasonable accommodation procedures for certified recovery residences. And I refer this item to Town Attorney Rubin, who's over
I
there.
know, over here.
Why are you over there?
So this is another requirement from our friends up in Tallahassee. Came out of the last session. So every municipality is required now to provide a procedure for approval of certified recovery residences. Some years ago, the state implemented a certification program. So if you wanted to, it was voluntary at the time. It's still voluntary, actually, but you can go through this process, get the resident certified, and then it also has to be administered by a certified recovery residence administrator, and that's a separate certification process. So just backing up, this was a huge issue. I was just talking to Ingrid because she was at Boca at the time, and especially in Boca del Rey, we call the recovery residences, they used to be called sober homes. These are essentially the residential component of people who are undergoing treatment for substance abuse. And under the Fair Housing Act and under the Americans with Disability Act, a person undergoing treatment for substance abuse is considered disabled. So because they're considered disabled, they can request accommodation from any town code, rule, ordinance, zoning, etc. Most cities adopted procedures way back when this was a huge issue. I guess it was never an issue in Highland Beach. And for a few reasons. I mean, usually these residences are located in close proximity to where they're going to have treatment. So usually it's near medical offices. Usually there'll be a office component where people actually have their treatment, their sessions, whatever they're doing. And then there's a residential component. Now, the theory behind the residential component is that people who, if they're living in a family setting, in a neighborhood setting, that facilitates the treatment, the chances of success are higher. That was even recognized by the Florida legislature when they implemented the recovery, the certification program, saying, well, living in a family setting in a neighborhood helps facilitate recovery. So the town of Highland Beach now has to go through and adopt this procedure. So it's pretty straightforward. The statute has all these timeframes where you have to, and those are all in the ordinance, timeframes for having the hearing, timeframes for rendering the decision, all that kind of stuff. So, basically how it works, somebody would apply, they'd have to show if they're licensed. Some will be, and I've had them in other cities. Again, we haven't had any. There's basically two kinds of these recovery residences. There's ones that I was just talking about that are affiliated with a provider, and then they provide the residential component. And then there are ones that are purely voluntary that work on a more 12-step kind of thing, and they just loosely organize and have these homes. But those generally aren't certified. Now, by requiring the certification, so under our procedure, they would have to be certified. So that does provide a higher level of protection, that they're certified by the state. They've gone through all these hoops. They've demonstrated that, they're a reputable provider, and then that the person administering it would be also a certified administrator, and they have to go through this certification program. So the way it would work, they would apply, they'd show what licenses they have, they'd show their certifications. They'd have to give the statement why it's necessary. Now everyone gives the same reasoning essentially, and I sort of covered that before, that this is necessary for the recovery process to live in this family-like setting. And the way ours is set up, it would be heard by the magistrate. It could be the code magistrate, or it could be somebody else that the commission wants to appoint. That's up to the commission. The reason it's done by a magistrate is because these become very political. They become very political because, it becomes very much, why do I have to have this next to my house? It just, people do kind of, it plays on the emotions a little bit. But again, this is a statutory requirement. We have to have the procedure. So I tried to keep it pretty basic and really just required the minimum requirements that we have to have as the legislature has dictated. But if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to
I
answer.
have specific questions.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, do they have to follow any zoning rules at all?
Well, we don't have any zoning rules that really prohibit it. Now, so this is the other, and I did discuss this at the commission. So generally what most cities did, and this is back in the day, to sort of give them greater regulatory authority, they defined what a family could be. So a family could be no more, most have the same definition. We do not have one, but most have a definition that say a family can consist of no more than 3 unrelated persons. So if you were going to have more than 3 unrelated persons in a single family home, you'd have to go through this process. It's called the reasonable accommodation process to get an accommodation. Now, we don't have that, but we do have other regulations, like we adopt the International Property Maintenance Code, which does have square footage requirements depending on how many occupants a structure has. The living area has to be so big. You can only, for each person, the bedroom has to be so big. That kind of stuff is probably where it would come into play here. But we don't, and Ingrid and I actually had this discussion, should we be adopting a definition of family? But we have a Senate Bill 180 problem where we can't make anything more restrictive right now. So we really can't do that right now. But again, I don't anticipate, I'm not a fortune teller, but it has not been an issue all these years. It was a very hot issue. It's really cooled down lately because the state, there were a lot of unscrupulous providers back when, and the state really cracked down, and there were a lot of people prosecuted, and there was a lot of fraud going on with insurance, all sorts of crazy stuff. Basically, what is now, you really only have you have mostly the reputable providers now. But again, nobody's really come into Highland Beach for a multitude of reasons. We don't really have any commercial. Well, we don't have any commercial. We just have the hotel, which isn't even zone commercial. And so that, and plus, in the more affluent communities, the real estate values are just so high
Right.
that it just doesn't make.
They have to buy a place or.
Right. Oh, and
Okay.
the other thing I wanted
Yeah.
to cover was, and this came up, and remember David asked me before, it does not supersede your association rules.
Oh, okay.
So
That was my
if
next
you're in
question.
Yeah, everyone has that question.
And I have one more question.
If you're in a condo association or an HOA and you have rules about how many people could
Right.
occupy, how often it could be rented, whether you can sublease, because essentially what they do is they sublease.
Right.
If you have rules that prevent that, this would not supersede that. Those are still enforceable. This is just the town's rules.
Okay.
So it would really only apply to, well, it all depends on what your documents say. Some might not have restrictions, but if there are restrictions, those remain in place.
Okay. And my last question is that property just south of Toscana that's vacant. Could that guy build something on there? Like
We
a
don't-
high-rise thing or?
No, this is really just for the residential component. We don't allow substance abuse treatment centers.
No, but not even a tree. Could he build like,
A huge house that,
or, he could build up to 3 stories or a bunch of houses and use it all for that? Because I could see him doing that.
well, we really can't control that.
Right.
I mean, he could do that and apply and go through the process. Again,
But
I
would we
don't-
have to let that go through?
Pretty much. There's, so the controls that you have, and there's not much control that you have. The controls you have is if it becomes an over concentration, because and I know this was a huge issue in Delray Beach back in the day. You start having all these homes. Well, if you have a concentration of recovery residents in one area, well, then you're undermining the whole purpose, which is to be in a neighborhood setting, and it just becomes sort of a de facto treatment center district. So we really don't have much control over that. We don't have to allow them to perform treatment on site, but as far as the residential component is concerned, there's very little play that we have. other
So,
than requiring all the certifications.
so he could build like as many houses as the town would allow him and fill them all up with these people.
Well, again, that would be how many people, because if you're building multiple structures and filling them all with people, again, that are undergoing substance use treatment, it sort of takes.
Yeah, but
away
they're on one
the
lot,
reasons.
you know.
They are on one lot, but if you're, it would depend on the number of people. I mean, that's sort of a bridge we'll have to cross when we get there, but you
We
just
just have
don't
to
have
learn.
much control from a legal perspective.
done.
You don't have much control.
Right, no, but we're gonna enact, right, well, okay, we're gonna enact, you say no one's done it, but we're gonna enact this statute, it's gonna be public that we enacted it. And if he's the kind of guy who would like jump
Look,
right on. it, yeah.
we would be required anyway. We just didn't have a procedure in place. And this is actually better because under the law, we would be required to grant or at least consider a reasonable accommodation for somebody who applied for one. But at least now, they'd have to go through the whole certification
Right.
process. We couldn't have somebody just come in and say, oh, we want to set up this home here. And
Right, okay.
Mr. Brown,
I have a question. A certified recovery residence is a business, correct?
no, it's not considered a business. See, under the law and even under the statute, it's just considered a residence. It's not. So if it's just the residential component, it's not considered a business.
It doesn't require a permit, a commercial permit in order to be able
No.
to operate?
No. And you can't require a business tax receipt if if they're doing any sort of treatment, it changes the whole game. But if they're if they're using this structure just to house people undergoing treatment, you have to treat it as a residential use
So
legally.
And if somebody's undergoing recovery and they're considered disabled and they can ask for accommodations, has anybody asked for accommodations in Highland Beach?
No, not that I'm aware of.
No, I've been here 6 years and we haven't
What
had
happens?
requests.
Yeah. What happens if it's a corporate entity that is trying to, run the thing? That becomes a business then,
Well,
doesn't it?
no, it's still, again,
Still-
even if and that's what I was saying, that's the one type of,
Mhm.
and we have a few in North Palm Beach where because we have a lot of cheap commercials. So that's really what brings people in. We have a very, old commercial, a lot of aging commercial structures where they have medical offices. And so that's what happens. But
Yeah.
if they're just for the residential component, it still can be owned by a corporation, but
Okay.
it's what they're doing on the property that is dispositive.
So they would have to literally live there, and then because
Correct.
it's Highland Beach, they'd have to bus them out to get treatment.
Correct. And they bust them anyway. The standard model is, these vans pull up. I mean, because I've lived it. I lived this process a few times actually. And yeah, they essentially they'll have vans come up and then they'll take the residents for treatment and whatever they're going to do during the day, and then they bus them back. And again, we don't have a lot of recreational facilities, but the other issue that pops up in other municipalities is, then they'll take an outing to the park and then but again, it's just the way the geography, the property values, the lack of commercial zoning does not make Highland Beach an ideal place for such.
We're about to have a park across from a beach. So.
So you're just required to have an ordinance
We're
that
just required to have the procedure, yes.
it's not going to happen in Highland
Eh, eh,
Beach because if a inexpensive property becomes available, the land is worth just
Right.
as much with or without the property on it.
Agreed.
And what happens if they live there and then they become like they start engaging in crime or something?
Well, then that becomes a criminal issue, yeah.
And then you can do something about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, and you can impose conditions like when you grant that, we had one in Juno Beach years ago and it was like one of the conditions was if anybody leaves against medical advice, they just decide to leave, that they'll inform the town that they're, just so we'd be aware
Right.
that this was somebody who's undergoing treatment, who's decided not to live there anymore. And, they're just decided to leave, but.
Good.
Len, couldn't you also put restrictions as to visitors to the
Yes,
residents?
yes,
'Cause I remember in
good.
Boca, we
You can
had
put restrictions as to
restrictions
visitors,
like that.
and you can also sort of, now it becomes a little complicated with HIPAA and stuff, but you can do visits to make sure that, you know, the number of people is correct. Now you have to give them advance notice because again, there's laws against disclosing medical and all that kind of stuff. But there are ways, if we ever go down that road, to, you know, impose conditions to sort of monitor the activities that are occurring.
Did any ever go into Boca? Were there any?
Oh, yeah. When I worked with Boca, I did a lot of reasonable accommodations there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I believe there's one in Ocean Ridge along A1A, and I don't believe they've ever had any kind of an issue.
Issue, okay.
It's-
I was gonna
it's-
ask you.
There's no sign or anything. Nobody would.
Oh, yeah, you can't have signage again, because this is a residential use. So it has to look like any other residential unit.
So there's a couple of different levels of recovery, right? They attract and they target different classes of people in addiction. I think what most people are afraid of is the lower level classes, people that are doing it on some level of government assistance to pay for it or insurance purposes. But there's a whole part of this process that focuses on people of stature and have an enormous amount of wealth.
Yes.
The Betty Fords of the world, Handley, right here in our back.
Promises in Malibu. Yeah.
I was just in right.
And I happen to know the CEO of Handley. And there are others. There's another one that's headquartered right here in Boca. And they tend to put residences in very attractive places and their clients pay a very heavy fee. So
But it's a
do we have
different
any
class of
perspective?
client.
Right, that's the point.
We do.
Do we have, so it's still all governance under the same, so under that scenario, to, you know, and to your concern, I could see somebody making
So
that type of play. Because that's
it's
the
possible.
allure to those organizations. It's, you know, you still have your laptop, you're still working, you know, you're still running your business, whatever it may be, and you're living at the beach.
So
Mm.
yes, that could happen. Anything could happen. But again, if under your scenario, the impacts, you probably never even know. You would definitely never know they were
You
there.
wouldn't, but that.
Because
that
the
is
whole
what-
idea
yeah.
is right. And these are, if you're talking about people of a very high, you know, high socioeconomic status, they don't want anyone to know that they're there. And it's, you know, it's a very private, kind of like the Malibu Promises thing where you have all the celebrities.
Now, we're talking basically abuse here right now, but what about the somebody getting out of prison who's going to go to one of these situations? Is there a way to limit that,
It's
or
not-
I think,
it's not
does
more
that
than-
fall into this?
No, it's not like
Okay.
a halfway house.
It's not a
You
half-
have to be
okay.
Undergoing treatment. Now, there
Gotcha.
could be people who are undergoing treatment who, you know, have a criminal history. I'm not going to say that's.
Can I ask a related question?
Yes, sir.
Has Senate Bill 180 passed?
Oh, yeah, Senate Bill 180 is in effect.
And does Senate Bill 180 restrict the towns from doing more restrictive governances than the
Yes.
federal or state?
Well, no, what Senate Bill 180 restricts is any municipality from making any changes to either your comprehensive plan or your land development regulations that are more restrictive or burdensome. So that's what that addresses.
Then what?
Than what's currently in effect. Well, then what was in effect, I'm sorry, not currently, in August of 2024. So it went retro back to August 2024. So if you adopted something in that interim period, you had to repeal it if it was more burdensome or restrictive. And
So-
it's in effect until 2027.
Oh.
Although, as we've discussed at the commission level, there is a lawsuit challenging that's been signed on by a number of municipalities and counties. There's actually a hearing this month. They're seeking to enjoin enforcement of Senate Bill 180. And the Weiss Serota firm is leading that charge. They were successful in the form, if you remember the Form 1, Form 6. It required elected officials to do the Form 6, which was a much more detailed financial disclosure without really any basis. And they did enjoin the enforcement of that. So I'm hoping maybe they'll go 2 for 2.
So
Then we could change that three
And
family,
you
three
could add the
people.
definition of
yeah.
family. We can do a lot of things. We also backed off on our sign code revisions for the same reason. We want to make them more.
I apologize for taking us off topic, but
No.
the Senate 180 would also restrict the ability for the town of Highland Beach to further give restrictions to floating vessel platforms, I'm assuming as well.
Yeah, if anything at this time. Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I get there's nothing to vote on because
It's
it's
just a
law.
I
recommendation.
think my major concern, which I don't think would happen here, is that in a lot of these rehab centers, you have drug dealers right outside the door.
That's what right,
And I don't see that happening here.
right. I guess you then use the
You're not
police and,
hiding
yeah,
in the
that's why.
corners. There are no corners to hide in.
Well,
Right.
yes, it
Right.
it can become a law enforcement issue, yeah.
Right. Okay, I mean, I see it down where they're gonna build that parking lot across from the beach, the county, because that people could hide in there and I don't know, whatever.
But that's a police matter.
Yeah,
That-
it is a police matter, right?
that's-
I agree.
Because,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so this is something that the law requires us to have.
Correct.
So do we make a motion?
Yeah,
to-
we still need a
Okay,
motion, because
Okay.
it's still, because it amends the zoning code, we still need a motion
Okay.
from this board, a recommendation from this board.
Okay, what about,
okay. yeah.
I move that we recommend enacting this ordinance as presented.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Should we do
Do you have a second?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
second.
Oh.
Yeah.
so should we do a vote or should we just, can we just?
You could probably do an all in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye, okay. Okay.
Thank
Consideration of the 2026 proposed planning board meeting dates. I don't see any meeting dates. Is there a list of them?
In the last.
Oh, packet.
Turn it over.
Okay.
And just leave it
Um,
as the second.
this is still the second Thursday, basically?
It stays the
Looks like
same,
it.
basically.
Okay, great. Okay, so I make a motion that we accept the planning board meeting dates that are set forth in our agenda, which is the second Thursday of the month through December 2026. Second, anybody? Second?
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's good. Announcements, January 6th, 1:30 Town Commission meeting, January 8th, 9:30 our planning board meeting that is no longer tentative because we just approved the meeting date. And the meeting is adjourned at 10:02 a.m.
That's pretty good.
And everybody have a happy new year.